we are talking about single digit percentage points penetration today. Right? And a lot of it is because of 2 or 3 reasons. One reason is maybe folks today don't have money to spend on insurance. Two, maybe people think it's an expense and it's not an investment. Three, because the products which are designed are, they find it so confusing and complicated. So either you go and redefine the product, or you go and do a better job of explaining this product to the end consumer. So these are 3 problems which we are facing, and here the mindset changes will be required, right? Think about pre-2015, we still were a cash economy where most of us would carry cash, right? Today, imagine walking in Bangalore, you're able to pay practically everything on UPI or anything using a bank account.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruchir, for your time and for willing to do this podcast with me, to share about your work, to share about what health insurance is, and to share things around this ecosystem. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Kuzute. Thanks for inviting me.
Shall we start with introduction? Would you mind telling more about you, what you do, and what your previous professional life is?
Yep. So I'll do this very quickly, right? So spent roughly 7 years working for in the startup ecosystem at various routes. Saw 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100 journey at Exotel, Instamojo, and QMath put together across these 3 companies. Eventually went about to start my own company called OneAssure. I've been at it for about 2 years now. That's about me, as brief as I can be.
So just quick questions before we jump on to the main topic. You have been into the EdTech background, the SaaS background, and now into InsurTech.
Yes.
So how do you kind of make a shift out of all these 3 categories of 3 sectors of industry?
Yeah, I actually think it works, right? Because you learn a lot. Every sector has their own nuances, and you learn, and you're able to apply learnings from one sector across the other sector, right? Also, being in one sector also ensures that your work is incremental. And seldom I've noticed that anything disruptive, you need to have a third person's view, right? Otherwise, you end up doing the same thing over and over again, and you only think about improving things. You don't drastically think about changing the way things are happening, right? Or you don't challenge the status quo because you've been tuned to, you've been told that this is going to happen in this manner and you have to follow this. And then you try to make improvements according to the rules which are set in every sector. So for me, I guess it's always been that every sector had their own peculiar learnings. And that is what I've been able to apply in every other company I worked in some other sector. That seems to be one thing working for me.
So, like, why health insurance? Now you are into InsurTech, the insurance technology space. Why insurance? Why do you pick this industry?
2 things, right? I saw how UPI disrupted payments, right? Back in 16, 17. And when I look at in financial services, insurance was one space where there was technology enablement had not happened, or it's not gone to the grassroots today. Right? And there was a lot of opportunity there to disrupt the models which have been existing for like actually 3 or 4 decades now, ever since LIC came into existence. And that is where I felt the opportunity was, right? And the world is becoming digital. And why do you still have to, when it comes to insurance, a lot of these processes have not yet gone digital, right? So there lies the opportunity, also the challenge, because changing an industry which has been used to doing things in a certain way will take a lot of time and effort.
So one thing, you said this UPI has disrupted the payment industry in India, and which is very true. And then one thing we can give credit is to the Aadhaar infrastructure or the Aadhaar ecosystem. So according to you, in your view, how do you define a disruptive innovation? Because you seems to have a curiosity to disrupt the insurance space in India. So how do you define
simple, anything which solves an end customer pain point, which is you and me. Right? Anything you do which solves a big customer pain point. and can be turned into a sustainable business over long term. According to me, that's an opportunity.
Mm.
Right? Now it
Do
only
you,
depends on how large that opportunity is. Based on that, how large your company can become, or what you envision your company to become eventually.
do you kind of have some benchmark where it will like set a criteria that, oh, now I'm doing something disruptive or some kind of something like that? So if we see the Indian banking system before Aadhaar, I think there are roughly 40 something percent who have banking account, but now with Aadhaar, with UPI, I think almost more than 80 or even 90% of Indian already have a banking
You're
account.
bang on right. Right? It's
Yes,
so disruptive, right? It's so easy to open a bank account right now. You don't need to actually
exactly.
walk into a bank.
Uh,
And
within
imagine, yes,
within
sorry.
5 minutes, we can just open a bank account with
Yes,
Aadhaar.
yes.
So
And you
like,
can get a credit card also within 2 minutes.
so according to you, like in your view, do you have some kind of benchmark that can set you to define that you are doing something disruptive?
There's no benchmark here, right? Because the
Okay.
problem is banking, everyone has been banking, and you need, that's the way, right? Like otherwise we were a cash economy, and then suddenly some changes happened which made us, made every one of us move online, right? Now, when it comes to insurance, we are dealing with legacy issues also, right? Most of us
Okay.
think insurance as an expense and not an investment. One,
Mm.
that. Second, we have an expectation of getting something in return, and hence LIC has been so popular, right?
Mm.
All LIC, majority of the LIC plans are investment plus insurance plans,
Mm.
right? And we've been sold that one policy. But when it comes to general, and when it comes to particularly health, and on the retail health side, uh, we are talking about single digit percentage points penetration today,
Mm.
right? And a lot of it is because of two or three reasons. One reason is maybe folks today don't have money to spend on insurance. Two, maybe people think it's an expense and it's not an investment. Three, because the products which are designed are, they find it so confusing and complicated. So either you go and redefine the product, or you go and do a better job of explaining this product to the end consumer. So these are three problems which we are facing, and here the mindset change will be required, right? Think about pre 2015, we still were a cash economy where most of us would carry cash, right? Today, imagine walking in Bangalore, you're able to pay practically everything on UPI, or practically
Exactly.
anything using a bank account.
Mm.
So that's where the major change is. So I guess there's going to be a time gap, right? Like where a lot of companies will have to do a hard part of educating the customers, right?
So,
And insurance is also a passive need. It's not an active need. You don't wake up in the morning to buy health insurance, if I was
exactly. Yeah.
very honest.
So one thing, like for anything to disrupt, like there has to be a narrative, there has to be a story,
Yes.
not just a product or not just a feature. Apple sell their iPhone not because they have good features, but because they have a narrative that is simplicity. So
Yep.
according to you, what is insurance? How are you defining insurance, and what is your narrative for insurance, and how do you tell a normal people like me about insurance? Because if you just come to me say, hey, buy insurance, I may not understand what is insurance, right? So what is insurance to you?
So insurance is your protection against any unforeseeable event which may happen, right, in your
Mm,
life. Now,
mm,
when we talk about health, we are talking about any medical emergency which may happen, which may lead to hospitalization.
mm.
So, right, two ways. Let me break it down in a very simple manner. Someone gets dengue, gets hospitalized, spends a lot of money, and the money earned is hard-earned money.
Mm,
Premium is a fraction of the cost of the money which you will have to spend per month. Assuming
mm,
even 1,000 rupees per month leads to a 12,000 rupees for a 30-40-year-old, will get you a decent coverage, which will cover that 1 lakh hospitalization, 1.5 lakh dengue hospitalization, right?
mm,
And now think about it. Even if you spend for 10 years, you would have cumulatively spent premium or paid premium worth 1.5 lakh. And any
mm,
hospitalization up to a certain sum insured would be taken care of. Now,
mm.
do you want to dip into your savings to pay for this hospitalization and then recoup that? Because that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yes,
Versus
yes.
you think about protecting yourself, right? And two major insurances which we should think about is health and life, right? They are the
Mm,
two foremost fundamental things we need to protect. Right? Like if you're dependent on someone's in your family is dependent on your income. If what happens if tomorrow you meet with an accident or something happens to you, right? It'll set them back by a lot of time because they're still dependent on your income. In that case, term insurance plays a very crucial role, where a lump sum amount is paid and all future expenses and lifestyle expenses are taken care of, right? And if there is any debt, then that is also taken care of.
So since like as a company, as a person who is running a business that provide insurance policies, if in case majority or say more than half of the insurance policy holders need to claim the insurance over a short period of time, maybe say 1 year or 2 years, don't you think like the business will suffer in that case? Because like if we see the insurance business model, it says we will get a percent of money from, let's say, X numbers of customers, X numbers of policy holders.
Yep.
And then not all these X number of policy holders will be able to claim it, because they can claim it only when they suffer something
that is the whole point of insurance, right? Like all of us pool in money so that this, whenever someone needs it, he's able to now claim it, right? So the whole concept is that not all million customers will run to claim, right? In that case, the insurance company likely will go bust, right? Hence the concept of underwriting, that you underwrite your risk and you balance your risk also comes into play, right? So fact that all of these people will claim, it's actually also a chicken and egg problem. More people there are, the more better you can predict risk, the more better you can model risk, and you can do a lot more things, right? So you need more people to give better terms or to build better products for the customers to enroll. And this is a vicious cycle which keeps going on and on.
So just let's take one scenario, like suppose I am right now, I'm still very young, I'm a healthy person, I do workout daily, I go to gym, or I eat healthy. So I have less probability of getting sick in the next, say, 10 years or maybe 20 years. And if I buy insurance now, like suppose take a scenario that I'm going to meet an accident, take those things out for now. Imagine that in the next 10 to 20 years, I will have a healthy lifestyle. If I eat well, if I eat healthy and work out every single day, or say at least some few days in a week. So in that case, my probability of getting sick is little low. And if I start buying insurance policies from now on, when I'm in my early 20s, like what do you say, is that kind of an investment, or
it's actually an investment? It's actually an investment, frankly.
Do you think that is too early to start buying insurance policies?
No, it's never too early. I guess when you, the way I think about it is when you get your first check, you technically, we have a concept of jumping layers, right?
Okay.
If you look at financial planning, the first layer is called protection layer. The layer above that is called investment layer. Now, protection layer consists of health insurance and term insurance, which protects your health and protects your life. And term insurance here is a pure term where in case of death, money gets paid. It's not an investment plan. In the investment layer, you have mutual funds, fixed deposits, PPF, EPF, you can name it, gold, commodities, everything. But we jump the gun and start investing first, if you notice. And then we come down and see that there is a gap here. And typically the trigger for this is seeing someone in your family or some friend or someone who suffered and now has to spend a lot of money, right? And insurance is one such product, or health insurance is one such product. Is when you don't need it, people will sell it to you. When you need it, no one wants to sell it to you.
Okay.
Right? So the sooner you buy, the better it is.
So that means once I reach, say, 45, 50 of my age, that means I have more probability of getting sick, right? So that time, the health policy providers, they will feel reluctant to sell it to me.
Yes, the risk increases as you age, right? Like rightly said, right? You said that you exercise, you live a very healthy lifestyle, you eat healthy. But in today's DNA age, we are looking at so many external factors which affect our health, which you're not accounting for. There are factors which we control, but there are factors which we don't control. right? We don't control to get dengue or malaria because of mosquitoes around in our area. We cannot control, we could not foresee COVID, right? Did any one of us foresee COVID? And it affected folks who are healthy and it affected folks who are unhealthy as well, right? And there was no clear science here. Only folks who had pre-existing conditions had a severe attack, but even folks who were completely healthy had an adverse reaction as well. Right, so you can never tell. Plus the way climate is changing, the way weather is changing, the way our cities are getting polluted, I guess all of that also leads to a lot of effect on our health, right? If you've seen one drastic change, we never saw folks with diabetes, heart conditions, hypertension. Typically 10 years back it would be 40 plus. Now it's jumped a decade back, 30 plus, and even if folks above 25 now, you find them having some of these conditions, right? So so while you can do everything to control your lifestyle and stay healthy, there are a lot of external factors which most of us should realize that also impacts our health, right? Like people in Delhi are breathing air which is like literally unhealthy, right? The AQI levels were so high that the courts had to shut down traffic or call for a lockdown until the air quality improves.
So that means, in one way, if we think of the insurance business, when these external factors are not good or not favorable in terms of air pollution, in terms of the water quality the person is drinking, or in terms of natural calamities, it affects the business of the health insurance, right? In that case, because if that happens, more policyholders will have to claim the insurance.
You're bang on, right? Yes. More people will fall probable to some of these conditions. The more people fall probable to some of these conditions, or they develop some of these conditions, the more claims. But at the same time, we'll need more people to come into the system as well, right? So that the folks for who need it can get the amount, the claim amount.
Like, why don't we discuss about the Indian government health policy, or the health policy which we have in our country? Yes. Like, what are the policies we have, and then does it effective or does it impactful? How are the citizens, or as a person living in this country, how these policies are helping us?
Yeah, there are various policies, right? State government has a policy, central government has their own policy, right? Every state government has their own health care policy. Every central government has a central policy, right? Now, also every employee who earns below 22,000 is part of this employee state insurance corporation, sort of, which is a regulation, right? If it's a private limited or some sort of an entity and they employ and they pay below a certain salary, they have to compulsorily contribute towards that. Now, the problem here is that most of these plans or most of these policies are targeted towards folks who cannot afford it, right? Because that's where the need is the most. But question is, do we have the infrastructure to support that? Also, the question is, do all of them, are they aware of all of these things which are available, right? How the question in the common person's mind is, what do I need to do to enroll into this policy? Where do I go? How do I claim? Who do I reach out to in case of any issues? What happens if there are no beds in the hospitals designated where these policies are there? So these questions have to be answered, and a lot more needs to be done to create awareness around this also.
So, okay, continue.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so this Ayushman, Indian government, they have started something called Ayushman, right? So that they can target the least 40% of the Indian population. So where they can provide some facilities, healthcare facilities and healthcare policies, insurance. So what is your view on this Indian government policy of this Ayushman?
It's a great policy. It helps everyone. It's our way of, it's in some format, public-private healthcare sort of a policy, where the government is taking the initiative, negotiating on behalf of the masses, and then subsidizing the premium cost. But the first question still remains, right? How many people are aware? How do you go and register yourself? How do you get a health card? Where do you use it? How does it all work, right? That is the key here. And to a large extent, a lot of these policies, sorry, Kuzute.
So that means the other side of the problem is how the government is marketing or communicating about these insurance policies, right?
And how easy are they making someone to enroll into it?
Okay. So
Okay.
it seems like the government process are a little complicated.
Yes, to a common man, they will be complicated, right? Some of these people need support in local language, and you're targeting that
Okay.
sort of population. So, which means they have to be told, they have to be explained, and
Mm,
who does this outreach, and how does this outreach happen, and how do we educate people about
mm,
all of these
mm,
things, facilities which they have, or the schemes which the government is running, which will help them at a
mm,
subsidized cost.
mm. So recently I read one article, I think it's by Niti Aayog,
Mm.
Government of India, Niti Aayog. So they have mentioned somewhere that this Ayushman, the government policy, is helping to reach the least Indian populations. And then the upper class of Indian population, they are able to reach through the private insurance sectors. But
Yes.
for the people who are in the middle, especially the middle class working people, which have a lot of margin there, they cannot reach to the top because they don't have that level of income that they can buy high cost health insurance. But they cannot get the government Ayushman policy because they are not no more in that low factor, right? So there is a margin here.
Yes.
And the article says that the government and including the private sectors have to work together to figure out that the people in the middle can also have a health insurance. So
Yes.
what is your
And
view on this?
no, that is true, right? But there's a lot of work which is happening in that direction as well, right? They have
Okay.
options, but the challenge there is again convincing someone who has that income or is making about 30-40,000 rupees per month to
Mm,
spend that 500 to 1,000 rupees on health insurance.
mm,
Is he willing to do that? Does it make sense for him?
mm,
Because that is where the challenge lies, right? Because there's no perceived value, right? And insurance
mm,
is nothing but a legal contract to pay for some eventuality down the line if it happens, which may be hospitalization or anything. But
mm.
there is no gratification. It's not like you bought a phone and you could now feel it immediately and you could use it and you could
Exactly.
see how it is. And before you see any usage, it will be 2 to 3 years. But in that case, we have to make people think long term, not short term,
Mm, mm,
right? And I guess we are getting there. Most people are realizing that they should have this.
mm,
Coupled with a lot of people now prefer working, like average tenure of an employee in a company is 2 years, if you
mm.
notice, right? So
Yes,
when
yes.
people are shifting jobs, people have realized balance of life is important. People are taking sabbaticals. Folks are completely adopting to remote culture. Folks are even working as consultants versus working as full-time employees of companies. So it even
Mm,
becomes more important for them to invest in this right at that point
mm,
in time, because then they don't have to worry, because typically we rely on our company for some sort of insurance in
mm,
that manner. So I guess Kuzote, a lot of work is going on over there. There are some standardized products which are launched by the regulator, which can help this exact population where the terms are standardized by the regulator. One
mm.
of them is called Arogya Sanjeevani, right?
Okay.
And these products can be distributed.
Mm. So that means in one way, if I see uh like there is a gap of narrative or say a gap of communications, how do the private sector or even the private insurance companies and the governments are communicating about this? But because if we see on the other end, there's a product, there's a policy, but on the other hand, these people like me who are working full-time, who don't have that high income but still have a median income, don't want to spend too much on something called health insurance. But do you think the private sector or the government side too, they are providing enough informations or say providing enough narrative about this?
Two things, right? Imagine 5 years back. Tell
Mm,
me how many people were using mutual fund,
mm,
and think about right now. And you see the explosion in the number of people who subscribe to mutual funds. That
mm,
was the whole industry came together, went ahead, and it's good for the industry to grow.
mm,
And during IPL, you see ads called mutual fund sahi hai and a bunch of
mm,
these ads, right?
mm,
Which are not promoting any particular AMC or any particular mutual fund or scheme. It's promoting the whole sector in a way.
Mm.
Similar efforts will have to be done in insurance, right?
Mm.
And I guess we are getting there, where this will culminate 2-3 years down the line or sooner.
Mm. So this LIC, is it an health insurance company?
LIC is a life insurance company, right? So they typically insure your life.
Okay, so what do they exactly do? Like,
So you can buy a term life plan from LIC. So that
okay.
guarantees that if something happens to your life and you're no
Mm.
more, your family gets taken care and they get a lump sum amount. They have a
Mm.
lot of investment and insurance clubbed plans also, which are
Mm.
endowment, traditional plans, ULIPs. But then they are a compromise between insurance and investment.
Mm.
Hence,
So
you
they are
opt.
going for IPO, right?
Yes, they
What
are.
is your view on this?
No, yeah, I guess practically every Indian, every second Indian or third Indian, in my opinion, would have some or the other form of LIC policy. So
Um,
I guess it was about time that the LIC IPOs.
so do you mean to say that it's a good thing?
It's a good thing, actually.
Okay, wonderful. So why don't we talk about your company, OneAssure, the company that you started to help people get the easy accessibility to healthcare policies, health insurance. Why don't we talk about your policy, your company now?
Okay, so from a customer perspective, if I were to tell you what OneAssure does, it does everything for you, from helping you select a plan to helping you claim in time of need.
Mm.
And it is our responsibility to ensure that you don't have any hassle and
Mm.
you're not hassled when you are hospitalized, and everything is taken care of and you get your amount if in case it has to be reimbursement in your bank account. So
Mm.
that's where we are, what we are set to do. And we also want to tilt the power in the hands of the consumer by giving him the ability to choose, making him understand what he's buying, why he's buying, and helping him derive value of what he's bought,
Mm.
right?
So in one way, it's kind of a windows to different health insurance policies, right?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
does. So we distribute policies from about 7 to 8 companies today. On an average, we have a product portfolio of about 50 to 70 policies today across these 7 to 8 companies.
Mm.
And the idea here is very clear: to help you as a customer
Mm.
navigate the complexities, explain what you're buying, what you're investing in, help you choose that plan. And once you choose that plan, I cannot explain the policy immediately. I have to engage
Mm.
you over the next 1 year, explain the terms and conditions, right?
Mm.
Like, let me put it, most people will relate to signing an employment contract when they join some of the other company, which is a big document. The question is, how many of us have actually read the contract?
Mm.
It's a very similar example when it comes to health insurance. How many of us have read the policy wordings, which is actually the contract which we are buying? And that
Mm.
percentage is very small. So
Mm.
hence, and to a lot of us, it doesn't seem natural to open this and read this because we may not understand it, right? Anything which is
Mm.
written in legal language, you may not understand it.
Mm.
So now the key here, Kuzote, is that can someone now educate you, engage with you, explain, and help you during your life cycle, right?
Mm.
And that's the value add. And how can we now give the power to you by helping you understand what you're buying, what is the product, what does this feature mean in your own language, or in terms which are very easy for you to understand.
Mm.
So that's the crux of OneAssure's model. And we are a technology powered platform, which means
Mm.
that we have a product facing you as a consumer, and we also have a product facing partners who work with us to spread this message to a lot of customers.
Mm. So you don't directly sell health policies, but you collaborate with companies to sell their health policies through your windows.
Yes, and we also have partners who are advocates who create this awareness, who help handle, answer every query which you as a consumer may have. And folks who are on our network are folks who are who go through a rigorous training where we ensure that they are able to handle all your objections. We
Mm.
regularly upskill them. So we do that, right? And these are trustworthy folks in the community, like a financial advisor, financial planner, someone who's a mutual fund distributor. So a lot
Mm.
of these guys are our resellers on the platform, or folks who we partner with, who are now able to explain and help you navigate this complicated world.
So that means, do you also have kind of after the sales service kind of thing? So after
Yes.
people buy your policy through you, like do you also provide like when they want to claim for that
Yes.
policy?
Yes, we take care of the claims as well, right? We help them and we
Okay.
simplify it so that they don't have to navigate through this process.
So I think that means you have some wonderful bunch of people working
Yes.
together with you, right?
Yes, we do.
So one thing, like let's discuss about why healthcare policies is important.
Multiple reasons, right?
Okay.
Today, let's split healthcare into two parts, right?
Mm,
Like most people, primary care, which falls under outpatient expenses, which is called OPD, and
okay.
then IPD, inpatient. That is when you actually get hospitalized for 24 hours or more.
Mm,
Majority of the policies sold are IPD policies. OPD is not prevalent because the cost of hospitalization or consultation in our country is very low, right?
mm,
Which is now increasing drastically for
mm,
again multiple reasons. We have one of the lowest doctor density per 10,000 of population if you go
mm.
and check across the world,
Yes,
and
yes.
which is whenever there's a demand supply issue, you will always see the cost will increase, right? And we are not
Mm,
churning out as many doctors, nurses, and even if we are churning them out, there's a drain because they move to other countries for better opportunities and better prospects in their life.
mm, mm,
So, so that is the reason why it is very critical for people to invest, right, in health insurance. Consider this as an investment, like I earlier said.
mm. So like it's purely an investment kind of thing for this health insurance.
Yes, I would want to get that message out that it is an investment and not an expense.
Wonderful, wonderful. So can we talk about say entrepreneurship startups, because you are
Yes.
into entrepreneurship and startups? Like what is your view on the current entrepreneurship, the startup space in India? Because you live in Bangalore, and then Bangalore being the city of startups. What is your view on what startups are doing these days? What like what industry they are pursuing? What is it about that inspire you
So
about these
two
startups?
things, right? Two things. One thing
Okay.
is that when you run a business or when you run a startup, right, you can
Mm,
see impact happening immediately, right? You're
mm,
right in front. In a big company, it gets lost. It's very
mm,
difficult to figure out what impact you're having on your client.
mm,
Or seldom there are layers which you have to jump before which you can actually see the impact of what you're doing.
mm,
Whereas when you build a startup or when you build a company, you can see that immediately happening, right?
mm,
That's one. Secondly, our ecosystem has grown. It's become vibrant.
mm,
Uh, 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 we have I guess, we have the best talent here, right? And if they have been enabled with right tools and opportunities, I guess the future is only bright from where I see right now, right?
mm,
Think 2011, 12, it wasn't so mainstream when you were doing a startup and you told your parents you got a job with a startup or you're going to join your startup, your parents would you should look at the expression on their face.
mm,
Come 2020, 2021, 2022, and you tell that you've got a job in a startup, and it's perceived very differently because it's become
mm,
mainstream now,
mm,
right? It's become mainstream, which means that more people will attempt entrepreneurship, which is good always,
mm,
right?
mm,
Which means it also talks about our inherent risk-taking abilities.
mm, mm. So people are pursuing more of a startup ecosystem rather than an MNC like big companies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like
And like that's become now, right? No more is it like, oh, are you joining a startup versus, oh, you've joined a startup. What do you guys do?
mm,
Right? The whole expression or the way people perceive you when you say that has changed now over the last 7, 8 years, 9 years, right?
mm. Is this because like the startup companies provide better salary or better paycheck, or why people are like going to a more like small companies, companies that doesn't, sometimes these startup don't even have a proper product, but still people want to join the startup? And then what I see is that in startup you actually have to work more because
Yes.
there's no set timing. But in a big company, like if you say you work in Infosys or Wipro or Accenture, you have a specific set of timing, and you
Agreed.
already have a set of work that you need to do for the next 2-3 months. But in a case of startup, you don't even know what you're going to do tomorrow, because you have
Yeah.
to have constant meeting, or you have to figure out along the way. That means
Yes.
there is more work for you.
Yes.
So why is people want to join startup?
Two things, right? Everyone
Okay.
likes growth
Okay.
fundamentally, which means obviously startups would pay more, but then it comes with the risk, right?
Mm,
Infosys or a Wipro is very stable as a company. Their revenues will grow, everything will grow.
mm,
Plus, startups make employees part of their shareholding structure also, right? That option is there. So wealth can get created here very quickly.
mm,
And if you're ready to put in the hours and if you're ready to do things, and at the
mm,
same time, you have a very steep learning curve,
mm, mm,
right? Like, so it's a mindset, right? Like, and now more and more people, because it's become more socially acceptable now, it is, I think a lot more people will be okay to working for a startup, will be okay to doing all of those things, right?
mm.
It's always there's nothing called as a free lunch, right, Kuzute? So
Yes,
it's
yes.
either more salary or more learning, right? And there's a balance between the two as well, right?
Mm, mm,
Now, it's very personal to every individual. For some folks, startups may not be the place, and corporate
mm,
life is much better. For some
mm,
other folks, startups would be the place they would want to spend the next 10, 20 years of their career into.
mm, mm,
Completely depends on the individual. That's all I
mm.
would like to say.
So one thing, like when a person work in a startup, they kind of like they don't have a security, because they don't know whether the startup will actually take off. If the
Yes,
startup fail, then they lost their job. But say if you work in Accenture, like over the next
you're
10,
right.
20 years, you may have the job security.
Yes, you're
So
right. That also depends on how confident we are on our own self, right? To a large
mm,
extent. How confident are you of your own skills, right?
mm,
Which you have, or how confident, right? So I treat every opportunity as a learning experience. Did you
mm,
learn something out of it? Did something come out of it? Did you become a better person? Then
exactly.
job is a secondary question which lingers in your mind. But then
Mm,
you have folks who want security. In that case, I guess the traditional path does work well for them,
mm,
right? It's not for everyone to be able to manage, to be able to solve problems which they are not expected to solve. it's
mm,
a it's also a mindset, right, which you have to build when you're working in a startup or joining a startup,
mm,
right,
mm,
in my opinion. But then the rewards are also commensurate with the risk, right?
mm, mm,
So when it comes to that, then it balances out, in my
mm,
opinion. You're
mm.
learning more, plus if the company does really well, then you can get to a very, you can skip a lot of hierarchical positions and get to the top very quickly.
Mm, mm.
In a Accenture, maybe you will take 20 years. In a startup, maybe you will take 5 years, 7 years.
Exactly, exactly.
So it's risk versus reward. If it pans out, it pans out. It doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out.
Mm,
But nonetheless, it will still be a learning experience.
mm, mm. That's really true. So one thing you say that we have Thailand in India, we have Thailand, we have great number of youth here, but
Hmm.
since the past recently, I have been talking to so many funders, including funders in tech space, in especially in like blockchain and this crypto space. What I see is that these companies, these funders, they are shifting their base to outside India. Maybe they're going to Singapore, maybe they're going to Dubai or something like that. So if we see this, like there is a shift or transfer of talent from India to outside. Or say if we see so many great Indian startups, the Indian founders, they're not registered here in India. Though they are operating in
Oh,
India, they are registered
exactly.
somewhere else
So
outside the country.
that's because of the business, the model, which the government will have to convince, right, and make
Mm,
life very easy for anyone to start a company and anyone to go ahead and run a business for the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right?
mm,
Because people go there because of compliance. A lot of systems there have been ironed out, right, and they are very
mm,
fairly straightforward. So
mm,
hence they get incorporated over there, and then allows them to list abroad, a lot of possibilities are there, right? And it also depends on the sector and the kind of company you're building. In our sector, especially in the regulated sectors, you will find that this may not be the case as much. But when a company is global, when the company is technology based, and when their customers are abroad, then it makes sense to be incorporated there. So the Indian government has taken steps, right? The Startup India program, the benefits and all of that, which has made incorporating in India easier, a lot of things very easier, right? But at the same time, completely depends. It's a personal call, depends on your business model. But still a lot of work in India needs to happen on the compliances which you need to follow when you start a company, right? Like, would you want to follow these compliances, or would you want to build your business and get to a point where you have a product market fit or are generating revenue, so that now you have a real business and profits.
That's wonderful. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
If we look at your journey, you start from EdTech background, you go to SaaS background, and now you are into InsurTech. You started your own company, and you are in the process of building a sustainable business, not only a business that makes profit, but a business that can sustain for a long term, for a long run, maybe next 30, 40, even 50 plus years, right? So if we see all these things from the start till now where you are, what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of your life? Or say, what you will say about the meaning of all these things?
Nothing. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to do is have an impact on someone else's life and impact as many lives as possible. And OneAssure gives me that opportunity to do all of those things, right? Also, there is a right time for everyone, right? Like like I would advise, don't just start up because you want to start up or because you think. You really need to understand the nuances of starting up. It's okay to work under someone, learn a lot of things, and then start up as well, right? So it's a personal call which most folks need to take, right? And there are a lot of examples, right, where folks have started up after in their 30s, in their 40s, and built massively large businesses in the world, right? So it depends. It's completely personal. All I would say is that whatever it takes to get you a good night's sleep, and the fact that you can live with yourself, that should be the end goal, right? And for everyone.
Thank you so much, man, Ruchir. It's really nice talking to you, getting to learn about different health insurance policies and learning things through your wisdom, through your experiences, and through your journey of this entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your insight and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, Kuzote. Thank you for having me. I hope this reaches to as many people, and maybe a lot of people will get something out of it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Chalo, thank you so much.